Staff who are continuing to turn up for duty at Wallsend gathered outside the hospital this afternoon to hear the Industrial Commission's decision. According to a statement from Justice Maidment, he will not recommend an inquiry into the Hunter Area Health Service, nor will he recommend remaining Wallsend hospital staff comply with transfer orders.
Well, he certainly made no contribution towards resolving this dispute. I mean, he sat on the fence and really his decision is a nothing decision.
In a further development, the Health Services Administrator, Dr Tim Smythe, called an urgent meeting with trade union officials. He offered them a package which he hopes will resolve the dispute. He is proposing to keep urology services operating at Wallsend for a further 10 days, until the upgrading of facilities at Royal Newcastle has been completed. The picket line would then have to be lifted to allow the transfer of equipment to the Royal. Dr Smythe would also set up a task force to examine the future use of Wallsend Hospital.
Well, it doesn't offer much at all, in terms of the current situation, and quite obviously it's not much, I believe, for the people who are campaigning here to pin their hat on.
Late this afternoon, staff at the hospital were considering the proposal. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Beach inspectors and rescue services rushed to the southern end of Bar Beach at about 4 o'clock after a surf ski rider had been dragged ashore unconscious by other surfers. The man had been paddling a Merriweather Surf Club training ski just out from the break, but minutes later was noticed floating in the water beside his ski. Another ski rider paddled out to investigate and immediately attempted to resuscitate the unconscious surfer while trying to get him to the beach.
I waved for help after getting him onto my ski and called and shouted, and eventually, I guess after 10 minutes or so, two fellas came out. One fella swam out, I think surf life-saving guys, and they basically took over.
The 19-year-old failed to respond to frantic attempts to revive him on shore. He was flown to the John Hunter Hospital on board the rescue helicopter but was pronounced dead on arrival.
Organisers of the first Spring Carnival luncheon couldn't have asked for a more perfect day and a more idyllic spot to savour what promises to be one of the most successful carnivals on record. Headed by the $100,000 NBN Cameron Handicap on the 17th of this month and the $250,000 Winfield Newcastle Gold Cup the next day, each race has drawn an outstanding list of nominations, with 91 still in the hunt for a start in the Cup. And the Wyong Cup run this Wednesday could be an early pointer.
That the first four place getters at Wyong will be having a rematch at Newcastle, and I believe we'll have quite a few top horses away from those four, including off the record from the David Hayes stable in South Australia.
Guest speaker at today's function was Neville Voigt, who guided St Martin, Over the Ocean and Gurners Lane to wins in the Gold Cup in 74, 79 and 82 respectively. And in his first attempt at the Cameron Handicap as a trainer, Voigt was again in the winner's circle. Naturally, the Newcastle Spring Carnival holds a special place in the Voigt calendar, as it does with many of the country's top trainers and hoops.
It's gone ahead that much, like the class of horses that is getting here now is it's top class, and it's been a proven race because horses like Gurners Lane and things that's won the Newcastle Cup, they've all gone to Melbourne and really done very well all the time. It's been a really, hasn't been just an average race, it's been top class.
The historic lighthouse residence had withstood the test of time, braving the elements since the 1800s, standing beside the beacon on a spectacular point at the entrance to Port Stephens. This morning, only the sandstone walls remain amid piles of smouldering rubble. The residence had been neglected for some years since the lighthouse went over to automatic operation, and electric power had been cut to the residence for about 2 years. A caretaker occasionally checked on its well-being, but wasn't about last night. The Coastal Patrol received reports at about 11:30 of a huge blaze on the point.
He said there was a fire on Point Stevens. I said, what sort of fire? And he said, well, it's the building. I said, are you sure? Oh yes, he said, and it's well alight. So, I immediately got onto the fire brigade, and the fire brigade, naturally they said, well, what can we do? Because how can you get onto the island? If they get on there's no water anyhow.
Police believe vandalism is the most likely cause for the fire.
A lobsterman's life is fraught with danger. Working alone from a small aluminium boat, Jeff Rudder begins his day before sunrise. Catches are often best on the tail of rough seas. Traps are put in the churning waters around breakwalls and rock shelves, and weather permitting are checked each day. Adding to the problems of what can be a difficult way to earn a living, catches and traps are stolen.
You go down there day after day, the same thing, the traps have been run or they've been stolen, which is the biggest concern. Stealing your traps is the main concern, really. If they only just pull your traps, well, OK, they leave your traps there. But when they start stealing the traps, that's the part that really annoys the fellow fishermen.
Cooked lobsters are selling for $28 a kilo at the co-op, while live green lobsters fetch more when sold to restaurants in Sydney, where they're highly sought after for Japanese sashimi dishes. A lucrative black market also thrives with the onset of the warmer weather. Newcastle Water Police and Fisheries officers mounted an undercover surveillance operation off Redhead last week and claim they caught 2 alleged poachers red-handed. Their haul was confiscated and 2 local men now face fines of up to $25,000. Andrew Lobb for Country Report.
The opening of the new MSB office at the Nelson Bay Marina is a dramatic upgrading of facilities and an occasion for some heartfelt celebrations as the port community prepares for the annual influx of recreational boaters from across the nation.
The population of Tomaree doubles at Christmas time, 60-odd thousand, and I believe that Port Stephens is the 3rd most used waterway in the state.
Port Stephens has been the scene of a number of boating tragedies in past years, and the MSB Waterways says the office is part of a new approach to providing information on safety and navigation for boat users.
Our old office was in a back alley somewhere, open 1 day a week and a Monday. We'll have this office open 5 days a week now, providing good service and advice to our customers, and hopefully through that service we'll encourage more people to buy boats and come and use the wonderful waterways in this area.
It was a very formal affair. 100 guests gathered at the Belmont 16-foot Sailing Club to hear the announcement of the votes tally in first, the Rookie of the Year, won by Mark Wilson of Edgeworth. Then, Coach of the Year, Adamstown's Neville Power, who's taken the club to 5 successive premierships. It became an even bigger night for the Rosebud when the announcement came of the Player of the Year. "24-year-old David Bock has been at Adamstown since 1987, coming from Wallsend. He has scored 13 goals so far this season and will play his 100th game for the club in the Rosebud's 5th successive grand final appearance against Western at Spears Point next weekend. It'll be a game Adamstown will have extra incentive to win, having been premiers in the 4 preceding years, only to go down in the grand final each time.
He's not allowed to drive it. And you get out and walk around inside the,
Ken Nelson is one of the growing number of people in the Hunter who are waiting for urological procedures. He has needed a kidney stone operation since June. The procedure was to be done at the Wallsend Hospital. However, since it is in the process of being closed, Ken will have the operation at the Royal Newcastle when the equipment is transferred from Wallsend.
I think it's disgusting. I think, you shouldn't have to wait this long for it. I mean, a fair bit of pain. Not even night time when I'm laying down.
In a bid to keep Wallsend Hospital open, a union and community picket line is refusing to allow the only full range of specialised urology equipment in the Hunter to be transferred from there to another public hospital. Trade unionists have said the urologists are welcome to use the facilities at Wallsend. However, the Area Health Administrator, Dr Tim Smyth, will not permit urologists to operate at Wallsend. As far as he is concerned, the hospital is going to close.
At the moment, the closure seems to develop into a political football between the unions on one hand and the government on the other, and as usual, it's the patients who are suffering.
Dr Patterson had 42 patients on a waiting list for urological operations before elective surgery ended at Wallsend Hospital. Since then, another 12 patients have joined the list. Dr Patterson says patients are suffering because they cannot have prostate and kidney stone operations.
And the really worrying group of patients are bladder cancer patients who need regular follow-ups, and they won't get this unless we've got somewhere to operate.
Meanwhile, Ken Nelson continues to wait. He is not insured and cannot afford to have the operation done at a private hospital, nor does he wish to travel to Sydney for the procedure. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
They've been together for just 4 weeks, but Charmaine Blanchard and her new mate Dally are inseparable. With Kathy Nesbitt from the Guide Dog Association, Charmaine and Dally have been learning the ins and outs of getting around town, and they've certainly been turning a few heads in Windale.
Everyone just thinks she's a bit strange because she looks so different, but when you get to know her, they're just so lovable. They got a real character.
The Labradoodle brings together the bright qualities of a Labrador with the fleecy coat of the poodle, which is less likely to cause allergy reactions. One Labradoodle has gone to Hawaii, but Dally is the first to qualify and work in Australia. For 26-year-old Charmaine, Dally gives her a new lease of life. 12 months ago, she lost her sight following a long battle with an eye disease called glaucoma. But now with her new partner, she's almost unstoppable.
I can go into the heart of Newcastle now and back out again on buses. I can travel on trains. I can do just about everything.
Dally is now a family member and best friends with Charmaine's other mate, Missy the Silky Terrier. The Guide Dog Association says initial signs are that the Labradoodle will be a great success. In fact, there are plans to mate 2 Labradoodles, giving, of course, a double doodle. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Toukley School was founded 100 years ago. Today, the community celebrated. Hundreds lined the streets as students marched through the centre of the town, accompanied by pupils from nearby schools, including Budgewoi, Canwall and the entrance. It was a colourful procession, with costumes covering the last century. To commemorate the event, each of the 410 pupils from the school crafted a special clay tile portraying what they see as important today. They have been attached to the school wall, and the pupils hope their work will still be on display in another 100 years' time. With the ringing of the school bell by Principal Noel Murray, the real celebrations began. Each grade presented an era in time through music and dance. One of the highlights of the day was this performance of maypole dancing.
For 4 hours last night, Meadowell burned. Shops, houses, a youth centre, a factory, all were set alight as gangs of youths declared mob rule. An electrical substation was among the first to be attacked, plunging the housing estate into a darkness broken only by the flames of the fires. Fire brigades had to call on the police for protection after their crews came under a hail of missiles. 200 officers moved in to restore order by force. The operation was quick and effective, and the gang scattered before them. There was no resistance and few arrests. At first light, the scale of the rioting became clear. So too, the terror it brought to local residents hiding in their homes to avoid the mob.
It was just a mass of people, you know. They were just kicking the doors in.
Shops that weren't burnt were looted instead. Police say it was violence for its own sake.
Well, it's retaliation against society. It's almost mindless. If you look around, you can see the extent of it, and it's very difficult to explain.
From the air, the neat rows of 1930s houses that make up the estate are now pitted with the remains of a night of violence. It's one of the poorest and most deprived areas in Britain, where unemployment is around 40%. It's become a centre for joyriding and gangs, dubbed Ram Raiders, who've been using cars to smash and loot stores in the area. This graffiti hints at what sparked last night's violence, the death of 2 men, Dale Robson and Colin Atkins, who crashed in a high-speed police chase in this stolen car. The constabulary says it was an accident. Local youths are calling it murder. Alison Peters, NBN News.
The facility is to be built on this site by a member of the Cleanaway group EnviroGuard. At the moment, there are no legal oily water depots, and it's alleged local drains are an easy option for dumpers of waste.
We urgently need to have a facility where we can recycle those products.
Last night, Newcastle Council passed the 45,000 litre plant, but only for 15 months. The group had asked for a 3-year period. But Maryland residents say they're being dumped with a problem council can't sell anywhere else.
We feel like a second-rate suburb because we're getting all the waste from various places, and this will serve all of the Hunter Valley and the Central Coast, and I really feel that bringing it to the last developing corridor of Newcastle is not on for Maryland.